when you see the revenue drop, maybe that's your fault. It's not just the economy's fault. You tell me, are we getting lazy or is it the designer brands? We've all seen that LVMH right now is just not doing as well as it used to. Kering Group, Giorgio Armani, all of these kinds of brands that are catered towards luxury consumers are just not doing as well. And there are lots of reasons for this, including the fact that, consumers are just not interested in buying right now given the economic situation. But I also think there's a larger question here about designer brands just being lazy overall. Or it honestly might be us consumers. So the first thing has to do with price increases. And I feel like price is probably the biggest reason why people are not interested in buying anymore. We're seeing price increase after price increase, and people are getting fatigued by this. They're like, what is the difference between this bag? There's no difference. And yet, if I had bought this a few years ago, it would have been like $3,000 cheaper. And so I think designer brands are just getting lazy. They're like, rather than us trying to find ways to give you more value, we're just going to make the bags more expensive. And that's how we're going to make up extra revenue growth. And I think that has honestly backfired on them. We're seeing brands like YSL lower their prices because they're not selling anymore. And if you look very closely into LVMH's report, you'll see that everywhere in Asia, for example, experienced a low revenue growth except for Japan. And that is primarily because they're trying to make use of the low conversion rate with the yen right now. And so I personally went to Japan a few months ago, and I can safely say that the prices of the bags that you see there are not just comparable to what you would see in Europe, but sometimes even cheaper. And so customers might be willing to spend that kind of money, not because they're interested in the idea of saving money, but also because a lot of these bags are priced at a point where these bags might have been priced 3 or 4 years ago, like maybe 3 to 4 price increases ago. And so I think if you were to turn back the clock and think about 3 to 4 price increases ago, I think a lot of people were still buying. But as the price increases kept on going, people finally hit their limit. And so I think Japan is a unique case for people to understand what their willingness to pay is. And so I think the designer brands' laziness in just assuming that they can continuously increase prices has caused them to have difficulties in keeping up with their expected revenue growth. But here's where I think consumers are getting lazy. I've been seeing this Boston and Speedy bag in basically all the brands. The Speedy bag is something where people obviously associate with Louis Vuitton. Celine also has its version in the Boston bag, and now Dior has come out with its own Boston bag. And people are talking about it. Like the YouTube community is talking about this bag, whether they're interested in buying it or not. And I think that kind of almost shows laziness on our part as customers. When we go to these different brands, I am hoping to see a different kind of brand image and understanding of what bags are from different brands. But once you start having the same kind of bag, but just a different logo, then I think brands start to lose their image. They start to lose their individuality. They start to lose their uniqueness. And then, I feel like customers are just eating it up. Let's be real. Has anyone seen the LV low-key bag, the bum bag, and not thought that that's just the Uniqlo ripoff? Or when we're thinking about when Chanel came out with its vanity case, and every other company was like, I'm gonna make a vanity case. I think that's different from perhaps a trend like, oh, the East-West design right now is being very popular. And so I'm going to make a bag that is quintessentially mine, but make it an East-West design. I think that's still different because the brand is still using what they have and just mixing it up to make it fit today's modern style. But when you're just copying and pasting the bag, sometimes even the measurements of the bag and just putting your logo on it, I think at that point, we have to ask ourselves, are we just stupid? Which brings me into this idea of people are just so brand minded. I cannot be convinced that the Chanel 22 is a cute bag. I tried it on, I tried it in the mini size, the small size, and I just cannot get it out of my head that this is an ugly bag and it's just a sack. And I think it goes to show that the laziness comes from both sides. We as consumers are okay with this, and the brands themselves don't do anything to innovate, to try to find new ways. And I honestly sometimes feel like they don't even test the bags themselves in terms of whether they're functional or not. Instead, luxury bag designers are just saying this is trendy, let me work on it, and then let's sell a bunch of pieces and find the next trend. And so you're really seeing this new movement of probably like fast luxury. If that's the business model that they're heading towards, like I think we really have to ask ourselves as customers, are we willing to participate in this? You know, when I'm walking down a row of stores and I start to not be able to see the difference in the bags, I start to worry, why am I even spending any money at all? And the last point has to do with quality. Like I did mention that I feel like these brands are not testing out these bags in the market, and that also has to do with quality. Like if we're looking at these new Prada raffia bags, they literally look like they're $5. I cannot be convinced that people are buying this other than the fact that there's a Prada logo there. So I feel like the designer brands are getting lazy. Like when you see the revenue drop, maybe that's your fault. It's not just the economy's fault. The bag is just genuinely so ugly. Please do not buy this bag. So yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think designer brands are getting lazy and that's why we're seeing such poor revenue growth in the brands, and the fact that customers are just not happy with how brands are choosing to innovate? Or do you think customers are lazy and that's why they can get away with it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!